Well, when we think about the Father's heart, I don't think there's anything more dear to his heart than the broken and the wounded people that sometimes find themselves in desperate situations. And my guest today is Maggie Baratto, and you are the director of Father's Heart Healing Ministries, which encompasses a lot of work, but you are reaching into places where women are very broken in sex trafficking and finding themselves without hope, and you bring that hope. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Maggie, this began about 5 years ago. Share the story with me about how this began.
It began as a healing center, and through a series of events, I ended up, God had asked me to start meetings in a local legion for a year, one night a month. And I wasn't a speaker. I wasn't someone who was going to go. There's two things that I was afraid of the most, and that was speaking in front of people and getting on airplanes. 5 years later, that's a lot of what I do now.
Sometimes God does that,
yes,
right?
Yes. So I started speaking in a local legion one night a month, having meetings. And God had given me a real heart for the nation of Canada, to see Canada come into her destiny. And he said, I want you just to prepare the way, because he had given me, I had journals and journals over years of just the Father's heart for the nation. He said, I want you to start to declare the things I've told you privately, I want you to declare publicly. Wow. And so we started these meetings, and it was just to be for a year. And so 6 months into these meetings, and I have to say, at the meetings, God had instructed me I was to wear the Canadian flag wrapped around my hips and legs as a prophetic sign that God wanted to liberate this nation from every work of the enemy and bring Canada into her true identity and destiny. And so you can imagine, I had to overcome a lot of fear of man and fear of rejection, and just get up and be obedient. And so 6 months into this, I was sitting in my van downtown Arthur. I live in a village, Arthur, Ontario. It's actually been deemed Canada's most patriotic village. So really, it's in the middle of nowhere. I'm sitting in my van one day, and I was saying, so God, what's your heart for the nation? What are you doing with these meetings? What are you going to do with Canada? And the Lord spoke to me sitting in my van, and he said, the gospel has not been preached in Canada. And I said, oh, yeah, I think it has. Because I was thinking, oh yeah, we have Christmas, everyone knows about Jesus' birth, we have, Easter, people go to church, they know about the death and resurrection of Jesus. And he said, the gospel has not been preached in word and in demonstration of the power of the Holy Spirit. And immediately I had a vision of people lined up from one end of Canada to the other. And the lineup consisted of people in wheelchairs, people with bandages around their heads, so I knew they were mentally ill, people who were lost and broken and hurting. And I felt the compassion and mercy of the Father's heart and began to weep. And I said, God, what are they waiting for? It was like they were in a lineup waiting all across the nation of Canada. And he said, they're waiting for the church to preach the gospel in word and in demonstration of the power of the Holy Spirit. Wow. And then he said this, I want you to open a healing center. And I said, a healing center? Where? And he said, right there. And I was parked beside an empty storefront. And I looked at this storefront, I thought, and it was it had been vacant for quite a while. And somebody had painted all the ceilings black, and I'm like, in this old dump? And he said, I want you to open a healing center. And I said, God, if I open a healing center, this is gonna change everything. That means you wanna heal people. And so, just to cut through a long story, a lot of things that had happened, but within the month after the meetings in July of, I think it was 2011, we had a grand opening on Canada Day for the Healing Center. And so the Healing Center is like a spiritual hospital where people will come in and they receive prayer ministry at set times, just like a walk-in clinic. Within a few months, it was amazing the people that would come in, people who went to church but didn't know that God could speak. We really allow the gifts of the Holy Spirit to operate. To date now, we've been open 5 years. We have since become the national directors, my husband and I, over the healing rooms in Canada.
Right, because we have them in British Columbia.
Yes.
So they have gone across the land.
Yes.
And so for someone that doesn't know what it's like, you go in,
Yes.
you fill out
There's
a form.
a reception area.
Right.
You fill out a form, yeah.
And then you receive real prayer ministry
Powerful.
that can heal, that can help you emotionally, physically, to get you through. I bet you have rescued so many lives with what you've done.
It's amazing how many people come to the healing rooms. There has been countless salvations. People have been instantly healed physically, emotionally, set free. And so so now, after a couple of years, it just sort of morphed this healing room ministry into we started a bookstore, we started a cafe. It just sort of grew. We started doing mobile ministry, we started doing intensive care prayer, like just different aspects of the ministry. I resigned my career as a nurse, as a public health nurse, to do this full time. And
what a blessing for you as well.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. And so you also have the Cinderella's boutique, specializing in you know, very casually worn outfits that you resell, right?
Yes.
As a way to receive funds. And also the Beauty for Ashes Transformation House. Now this is amazing.
Yes.
So tell me about that.
Yes. So about a year ago, the Beauty for Ashes Transformation House has been open for about 8 months now. And about a year and a half ago, we're moving along with it. The Healing Center, it's growing, and God begins to speak to me about opening a home for women who are exiting human trafficking, the sex trade, and addiction. And what I realize is we already have the program in place at the Healing Center. We already have a lot of what is going to be needed. And so there's a whole story that goes with that, but literally we were given a house. Wow. And we have opened the Transformation House. We had a big grand opening about a year ago with that, and it's a Christian residence.
Tell me about, in the minute that we have left, about God's heart for precious women who feel trapped and whose lives are being devastated, and why God would create such a beautiful place for them to come and be set free.
So this house has got 7 bedrooms in it. And the thing that God had showed me initially when we were getting the house ready was, he says, Maggie, I want you to give them all their own bedroom. And we ended up having queen-size beds donated for all of the rooms, because these women are his queens, they're his princesses. And it really is about the lavish love of the Father. So every woman who comes gets her own room. We have learned a lot in the last 8 months. It's been a real learning curve. But I think that the thing that really that we're noticing is these women are arriving and they're broken, and a lot of them are at the end. Like something has to happen or they're not going to make it. They come broken, shattered. Almost all of them have been sexually abused, raped, abused. Some of the stories are really hard to hear.
We have a real problem in Canada. Like, we think of the sex trade as being an issue other places in the world, but Canada has a real problem.
It's right under our noses. It's right here in small towns. And so the women come and we interview them. It's not a lengthy process, and they're admitted to the house. And we have a full-time house mother, and we have a staff. We work with them. And we are seeing lives transformed. We are seeing women who are coming who are just desperate, amazing miracles of emotional healing, memories being healed. They're getting a vision for their life. They're finding out the gifts that God has put in them. They're discovering their worth, and they're beginning to dream about a destiny. And it's just amazing.
Well, I'll tell you, I could talk to you for hours, because this is exactly right up what makes my heart beat for those that are so lost. So thank you so much. Father's Heart Healing Ministries. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you to you and your husband for what you are doing to change a nation. You are being the real extension of God's hand in real flesh to our nation, and I'm blessed. I'm inspired. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back.